Hello, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to you, you thirsty bunch of beer drinkers, whenever and wherever you're tuning in from. It's great to be back with you today, talking about our favorite beverage. The industry is coming off a terrific Ontario Craft Brewers Conference that took place back on November 6th and 7th in Hamilton. It was awesome. It was a great conference. Some terrific speakers, sessions. Suppliers were well lubed and had a great time. The after parties were pretty solid. And I am proud to co-chair the conference and appreciate all the work that the organizing committee put into making it the best that it could be. We had a great big after party at Collective Arts, and it was so good to see so many beer drinkers, not just in the industry, but just regular beer drinkers like you out there listening. Come out to that after party. Some other stuff has taken place since the last episode, but we'll get into that in Around the Industry update because I don't want to take any more time away from the amazing guest we have in the hot seat today. That person is Luc Bim Lafontaine. He's here. He's the owner of Toronto's Godspeed Brewery, located in my neck of the woods at 242 Coxwell Street. Godspeed is a gem in this city, and the man behind the brand and the beers is about to tell you all about it. Bim, as he's known in the brewing industry, is a celebrity brewer, if you will. He's going to blush when I say that because I don't think he likes to know that, but he is. It's a name, his name is recognized throughout the beer industry. Not just here in Ontario, not in Canada, but worldwide. Right up there with folks like Garrett Oliver, Jean Van Wa, I probably butchered that, Adam Brose, Sam Calagione, Tommy Arthur, and more. He's an extremely talented brewer, known around the industry for his steadfast approach to quality, for taking his time to make things perfect, and for his unwavering passion for great beer. He started out homebrewing as a teenager before meeting the folks behind Dieu Du Ciel, where he promptly told them that he would work for them one day. After spending some time traveling the world, Bim landed at DDC for what would kickstart his career and develop his reputation. From there to Japan and then to Toronto to build Godspeed, Bim has been through a lot, created a lot of jaw-dropping beers, and is always innovating, but in the more traditional sense, or maybe bringing back the innovation that took place in the 1800s and longer. But Bim continues to keep other Ontario craft breweries on their toes. I don't know how this interview won't go over 3 hours. It can't because I have things to do. He's got things to do, but there's just so much that I want to get into it with him. And he's an individual that I greatly admire for his tenacity, his compulsive attention to detail, and his craftsmanship. And for his dedication in assisting others through collaboration or simply by having pints. And again, his addictive passion for beer. So hang tight while I take a sip of this fantastic beer in my hand, Old Dusseldorf Alt Beer. And we'll be right back with Luc Bim Lafontaine.
There appears to be only one line on this sheet. $50 for a case of Great Lakes Premium Lager. That's it? That's the ad? Okay. Cases of Great Lakes Premium Lager are only $50 every day of the year.
Bim, welcome to the show. I'm glad we could snag you before heading back to Japan.
Well, Troy, an honor to be here, and thank you for the introduction.
Oh.
I mean, very grateful. A lot of strong stuff in there.
I speak the truth, and on behalf of a lot of the people in the industry, that's exactly what we think of you, Bim. So
I'm so happy and excited to be here because I don't know if you remember, but you were the first person who ever interviewed me in Canada, and I think it's back in 2009 at Beer Bistro. I remember the date exactly, but I remember the moment, and it was amazing. And I remember I was so nervous.
Really? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
God.
Totally.
I got something on you. All right. No, I remember that. That was you guys did a beer dinner back then. I think it was. I'm trying to rack my brain. I don't know. It was a beer brunch. I think it was more on because we were doing a lot of the coffee stuff, the coffee stouts and Péché and
it was the beer. The brunch with Brian Morin.
Rest in peace, Brian. We mentioned that on the show here one time. But I understand that you just got back from Ottawa this morning and took the train in to be here today. But before that, you came back from Japan for a bit. Were you hanging out with Matt Tweedy in Ottawa? What were you up to?
Of course I did. I mean, Matt...
from Tooth and Nail Brewery.
Yeah, from Tooth and Nail Brewery. Matt means a lot to me. He's a very special person.
He's a special person, that's for sure. Shout out to Big Tweedy. There's a beer in front of you, Old Dusseldorf Alt Beer. We were just talking about this. You can crack that open and enjoy that sucker. We were just talking about this just before we pressed record here. Matt Bod, this was his beer, brewed it during COVID, and it is a nice German alt beer, and it has since become my favorite seasonal 7-barrel beer that we do, and I hope you enjoy it today.
Thank you. I really enjoy it. It's an amazing beer.
I don't think I've asked you this before, and I always get into the hard-hitting questions right away, but the name Bim, I've called you Bim for, it seems, forever. I don't think I've ever asked you about it. Where did it come from?
Interesting. Every time I do an interview, it's a question that comes in, and the answer is pretty boring, actually. My brother, when we have 4 years difference, and he's older, obviously. And when I was born, just start calling me Bim. Nobody knows why.
Oh yeah,
a mystery, and it's sticking up till today. So, and people always ask me, should I call you Luc or Bim? And I say, well, look at my face and whatever inspires you. Yeah, so it's just, it's going to follow me for the rest of my life.
Okay. I called my brother Shithead, and unfortunately it didn't stick. So let's talk about your start in brewing. You started homebrewing as a teenager. Why'd you do that? What attracted you to brewing?
Well, I was already, in love with beers. At that time, craft beer was not existing. It was more like imported beers, or, there's a few microbreweries in Quebec, but very few of them. But I was attracted a lot to the beer from, Belgium, UK, Germany, that we used to get at the SAQ. At that time I was about 15 years old.
Oh, yeah.
My older brother was getting beer for me from the SAQ, and and then in 1992 I did a backpack trip, 2-month trip in Europe in seeking the classic styles. So Munich and
So sorry, you took the trip.
Yeah.
It was a beer trip.
I mean, no, it was a trip by myself.
Okay, yeah.
But I went on search for.
Okay.
For me, it's very important to drink, the classic styles, where they come from, and
so you got hooked right away.
Yeah, and since I'm extremely curious and relatively artistic person, so I'd say like the natural, next step for me was to start making it.
So you were drinking the imports. You took this trip later on
in 92.
In 92 in search of, and you were going to all these famous European breweries.
Yeah.
Did you know that was something you wanted to pursue as a career, the beer industry?
I mean, not quite at the time, but it started to be more obvious around 1995, because that's where I dropped university, telling myself that I would become either a rock climbing or mountaineering instructor or a brewer.
Okay.
Yeah.
And before you went on that trip, so we're kind of fast forwarding a little bit, before you went on that worldwide trip, the European trip, you met with Jean-Francois and Stéphane, the co-founders of Dieu Du Ciel, brewpub at the time in Montreal, and you had said to them, and I don't know, I'm not going to quote you, but you told them one day you're going to work for them, but first you went traveling. Is that a true story?
It is a true story, yeah. But at the time, I told their original partner, which her name was Patricia, because they started, it was the 3 original partners, which I was a little closer to. JF was still very protective of his brewery at the start. And Stéphane seemed not interested in me at first. So when I was finally hired, obviously I definitely had to earn my way up there.
Yeah, so the traveling, so that's a great story, because you'll go on, and we'll talk about it. You went on to work for Dieu Du Ciel, and that's where your reputation really started to cement itself. But the traveling, so you're making your way around the world. and I've heard, and I think you've told me this, you were mailing them different things from along the way that you'd found, and like beer coasters or labels. How instrumental was the journey in shaping you and your brewing career?
Oh man, I mean, so much. The way I traveled was a bit particular. I've hitchhiked all around the world and, pitched my tent at places I probably would never again. I have some of the most amazing stories, life pivots and that change who I am today. If you want to hear some more, maybe invite me to the next podcast.
Yeah. Well, that was going to be my very last question of the day is, will you come back? But yes.
Please, yeah.
So you take the trip and you get to Dieu Du Ciel. You're back in Quebec and you get ready to get into the beer business. You land at Dieu Du Ciel, but not as a brewer.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I was still homebrewing very seriously at the time. I remember I spent like a year in Australia, and everywhere I go, I learn how to build my, like the cheapest brew kit that I can, but trying to make the best beer as possible. So I brewed in Australia, for a year, and just with, like local ingredients and back in the days with that Australian hops that's called Pride of Ringwood that you don't see anymore. Yeah.
Sorry, the hop was Pride of Ringwood?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
then we all know about the Ringwood yeast
from Tasmania. Yeah. So, but I got the job at DDC on April 29, 2001. I remember that. And like I mentioned previously, GF and Stefan were very protective, and they were the only one allowed in the brewery at first. So the only thing I could do is, take my time, be humble, and showing them how much this all meant to me. Then hopefully, make my way up there.
And what attracted you to them? Like, how'd you meet them? What was it that DDC? So I'm going to go back and forth between Dieu Du Ciel and DDC. It's just, I've always referred to them as Dieu Du Ciel. But what was it about JF and Stefan that you admired? How'd you meet them, and how did you decide that this is where you wanted to work?
All right. Well, back in 1998, you did not see a lot of brewing popping, in those days. So every time there was one, it was very special. I did meet them first at the Festibière de Chambly. I don't know if you know this.
I've been there. Yeah.
I mean, one of the best beer
Is it still going on?
Yeah.
Is that Mario?
Yeah, Mario Dair that started it. Yeah. And it was in partnership, I think, with Robert Charlebois back in the days, the famous Quebec singer. So they were showcasing one beer there, but they were not open yet. So this was in August, I think, August 1998. So I went to the booth there, and they had no beer. And, I was so excited because, a new brewery that's opening. So, crazy enough, the guys just, they just make the 1 hour drive back and another hour back to Chambly to fill some, to hand fill some kegs from the brewpub because they run out of it. And then, so I had a lot of time to discuss with JF and Patricia. And I tried for the first time a beer. It's called La Blanche de Septembre. It's their September with some spice and stuff. So, just going back and forth, conversing with them. And, they invited me to their opening on September 11, 1998.
Oh, yeah.
So I went to the opening, and, but the one thing that really hit me when I discussed with them is both Stefan and JF, they dropped out of university. Stefan was doing a master's, and JF was doing JF was doing a master, and Stefan was doing a doctor in microbiology, and they dropped to open Dieu Du Ciel. It's like, okay, I thought this was amazing, and look, so I just was invited to the opening, and the beer were amazing, and then it just like blew my mind, and I knew that one day I would be working there.
So you're one of 300 people that stormed that little place on opening day.
Yeah.
I love my beer history, and I can remember. Fast forward, I wasn't in the industry then, but the pictures of people waiting to get into this little place when it opened. So you get the job and you're working there, you're serving. When did they give you the keys to the brewery house? When did you convince them that, hey, I can brew beer, I want to do this?
Yeah, I mean, it took a while to get the golden key, but they did let me in to do some, little tasks like, cleaning, transfers, bottling duties. I remember our first, our first run of Péché Mortel bottles that we sent to United States.
Yeah.
But that's what changed a lot in the life of DDC. So that was around 2005. And then, it was more after the production brewery opened that I start taking the lead.
Yeah, Saint Jerome?
Saint Jerome, yeah.
Yeah, I was living in Halifax when Péché really came on my radar. It was 2006, and there was a store that had like 4 bottles for $9 or something like that. And then I looked at the ABV, tried one. When I got home, I was like, oh, this is a banger. This is a great beer. But that was one of the beers that really changed my mind on what beer could be, what beer that I grew up drinking. This beer wasn't that. And there's something more to the beer. But they're known for those beers like Péché and what was the real name? Aphrodisiac, right? Yeah, Aphrodisiac in Quebec. Yeah. But during your time there, when you were making beers, you were doing the low ABV, more sessionable, more traditional style of beers. Was that a business decision for you to do, or like to have a more balanced menu, or was that just because you like drinking them and they said, yeah, go with it? Or
I always been more attracted to the lighter, drinkable beers.
Mm-hmm.
So those were the ones that I was more interested to brew. Simple as that. For me, drinkability is the key. If you order a second and a third one of my beers, then we both win.
Yes. And were they more on the English styles back then?
Yeah, English style, but I did a lot of Belgian style. I did like table
Mm-hmm.
beer and stuff like that. German style. I was not at the stage of the Czech style beers yet.
So going off script here a little bit, but what was the one beer, the one that you created at DDC in your time that you kind of fondly remember the most, or you're most proud of stuff?
I think it's like maybe one of them was the, what was it? Bière de table, like the Rigor Mortis de table.
Okay.
Rigor Mortis is like big beers and stuff, and I did like the table version
Of that, yeah.
We did. I did also a beer called Wallonade, which was like a beer inspired by Brasserie de la Seine, Taras Bulba, and it was a staff favorite. And then also we did a Helles, and we're never big on subscribing into like beer competitions, but we were subscribing to the one in Montreal, Mondial de la Bière.
Mm-hmm.
We like
which is now called the Greg Noonan, I think.
Yeah, like the Greg Noonan contest.
Yeah,
and we love Janine Marois, which I'd like to support her. So, and we won. And that was in 2010 or 11. And I remember
I have a picture of JF accepting the award.
Okay, yeah. He called me. I was in the bus on my way because I had to do some stuff in the brewery. And he called me like almost in tears. And he says, we won the platinum medal for Helles. Like back in the days, it was all the big beers.
It was all the big ones, yeah.
And, so, I mean, that was a very strong moment.
I was there for that. I have a picture of that. We went out drinking that night. I have pictures of that. We went to Benelux and had an amazing time. I remember one of the things I remember about that night was everyone from DDC was there. Everyone from all the breweries were there, and how packed it was. It was insanely packed. But there was a bunch of Ontario people, and I don't know what it was. DDC always kind of hung around some of the Ontario folks that were there, the Moranas from Volo, and there was some Beau's All Natural Brewing Company back then that were there. But those were some of my fondest moments from those years, was going to Montreal, drinking with Janine. Like, you got to have an iron stomach to drink with her to keep up with her. But
what an amazing woman.
Yeah. Yeah. So you were with DDC between 2001 and 2012.
Correct.
Which is a great run. What did you hold closest to your heart from those years?
Oh man, I owe so much, to these guys. I mean, the fact that they did put their trust in me, to brew some world-class beers, and also being a face of their business, that really shaped me and built my confidence and wanting to become a business owner myself. The one important thing I can say is that there were probably 5 days in those 12 years then that I didn't want to show up to work. Mm-hmm. And probably in those 5 days I was probably the one to blame.
Hungover or something like that.
Yeah, I worked my ass off, working every day and not counting the hours, mm-hmm. but, taking so much pride and treating that place like it was my own, So I don't know. I can really say that it had the great, perfect work-life harmony for mm-hmm. me. So, thanks to them. And I told myself back then that hopefully one day I can give back to my employees by building Godspeed and hoping they can feel like I did.
Exactly.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah.
You and me share a big similarity there from when your time at DCL, and saying you take so much pride and ownership of your area of the company that you feel you operate like it's your company. And for many years at Great Lakes, I have operated the same way, where, I don't at the end of the year go, okay, this is how much this company made. That's gravy for me. But I take great pride in building things for others, and then thinking that, if this was my company, this is how I would do it. And that's how I go about my business. And so it's worked for you. And, anyone out there listening, it'd be great to approach your position like that, because now he's got Godspeed and he's the circle is turning back. You're hoping that others will do the same, that opportunity that you had. So
Great Lake is very lucky to have you too.
Oh, thank you. Okay. 2012, you make a massive life decision and you say goodbye to DDC, and your bags are packed. You head to Japan to start a brewery there. It's a huge, significant, bold move, and it's a big pivotal moment in your beer career. I could ask you, give me the 5 W's, but what happened? Why'd you do that? What was the impetus behind that? I know there was a woman involved, but so why'd you do it?
It always helped, right?
Yeah.
I mean, was it a bold move? Is it? I don't know.
I think it's a bold move. You pick up from Quebec and an established career working for a very well-known, reputable brewery, and you go to Japan.
Life is short, and what's the saying? Better to regret something you did than something you didn't do.
That's right.
I always had that mentality, and from my young years. So, I am the ultimate risk taker. And I am not sure if this is luck or not, but yeah, it brought me to amazing places so far.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So can you tell me a little bit about, you got there, and I know, again, we know each other well. There were some issues that surfaced.
God,
yeah. I want to focus more on the Godspeed years and stuff. It's crucial to know what happened.
I can say a little bit. I don't want to go too deep into it, but Japan is a deep and complex place. A lot of highs and a lot of lows during those years that when I left. You will hear many entrepreneurs saying that they learn from when they fall down, right? When they're falling down. Well, believe me, I felt pretty low.
Yeah.
I was at some point I was screaming inside, but felt very lonely, and and I never seeked help. It was I'm not big on social media or anything, but I remember writing on my Facebook, like, the mirror is my best friend because when I cry, it never laughs.
Mm-hmm.
It was like the Charlie Chaplin quote.
Yeah.
And I was in it brought me to a very, very deep state. And I don't know if you call that depression or, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Still not sure yet. But, this said, I did climb back up all the way to Godspeed. So, when you read on every Godspeed can, the Made with Struggle and Love, then you know where it started. So, the year 2012 to 2014 are some of the most important years of my life. I think is the most important thing to say as an answer, without going too deep into details.
Deep. Well, I'm no psychiatrist, but I'm gonna maybe diagnose that there is some depression there. But again, it sucks to say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And I made a life decision. I left Great Lakes for a little bit, took some time away, came back stronger and feeling better. I took some time, and it wasn't 2 years, but those moments sometimes open your eyes to be like, okay, I'm still here. I'm going to push forward. And you do that. You make the decision, okay, I'm coming back to Canada. And good on you for like looking in the mirror and saying, I can get through this, and I'm going to come out on the stronger end. But Godspeed is in your mind, and you chose Toronto instead of Montreal, which we'll talk about. But there's always a story when you talk to owners or people that start up a business, founders, that they jotted down notes on a cocktail napkin, and in some cases, in our case, it's like a coaster about the next big thing. So where was the concept of Godspeed born? Was it born in Japan, or was it born back in Toronto?
No, yeah. I always say my beers are a portfolio of my life. Yeah. And I could say the same with Godspeed. If I would walk through the space and explain everything, then you can probably better understand, where I come from. But long story short, this project really started from my days back at Dieu Du Ciel. Of course, I was doing like the Japanese ingredients, influenced beers and stuff. But I was also taking everyday notes on what would I do and not do as an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. Transforming the imperfection, some kind of perfection, always have been something important to me. Also my world travels, which brought the minimalist, in Godspeed. And if not the most important, Japan, taught me a lot about myself, and also taught me to see the beauty in simplicity. If you ask me 2 words to describe Godspeed, then I always say like refined simplicity. So
refined simplicity.
Refined, yeah. This is, I say it all the time. That's what it is. So, in some, Godspeed is very personal, deep digging into my soul, and, a very emotional project. So, people who followed me from the beginning know what I'm talking about. And, for the rest is just years of experience condensed in making sure the physical setup was built like with elegance and with a lot of common sense.
Well, this is no surprise to anyone that knows you, but you're a very, very, I don't want to use the word compulsive, but you attention to detail in every aspect of everything. That's what I get from you. And I know others have said that about you, that you want every last square or every last angle perfectly done. And
I need to learn how to let that go a little bit. Yeah. If not, it's just gonna kill me at the end.
So you chose Toronto instead of heading back to Montreal. Can you elaborate on why that was the best choice for you at the time? Or
well, if we need to rewind back in 2014 when I decided that I was going to leave Ushtada and sell my shares back to my partners, my Japanese partners there. I thought Toronto back in the days, I think it was fourth biggest city in North America. Not a lot not a lot in terms of brew pubs.
No.
And, for me, it was kind of, okay, the land of opportunity and
not even a land of breweries even back then.
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, it was a bit like New York. New York did not have brewery. It
and then
took
all of a sudden it blew up. Yeah,
it took a long time. So, and that's it. And for me also, walking back on my steps, and I would have felt very strange to open a brewery in a city that I worked like 12 years for that brewery, and so I turned the page and just and accepting new challenges. That's what it was.
Before we get to the part where you open the doors to the public in 2017, you worked for Bar Hop while putting things together for your brewery. What were some of your takeaways from those experiences that you applied to your business? Because Bar Hop at the time, and they still are, but Bar Hop at the time was like the craft beer bar, the beer bar in Toronto.
Yeah.
And did you met a lot of people? You met a lot of folks?
Yeah, of course. I mean, and thank you to Rob and Jimmy, for giving me the chance. And I was living just around the corner on Peter in Adelaide. So, it was like a 2-minute walk to work. It was great. But, they knew that I wanted to start Godspeed. Mm-hmm. So they gave me a lot of flexibility, in my work, and it was great. But for me, Bar Hop was more, it was, I want to help them. They wanted to open a small brewery. So, I want to give them a lot of advice, but mostly I wanted to feel, what people drink in Toronto, what is the feel but with craft beer and talking with a lot of people. And, that really helped me out because I didn't know much about Toronto. I was coming here for events with Dieu Du Ciel, but that's it.
So is it intentional to go to a place like that to get some experience before? I
mean, it just happened. It just happened like that one day. Like I'm drinking some.
You drinking
some
there?
What is it? Some Pappy Van Winkle's at it with Rob at the Bar Hop at King, and just like we're talking, he says, just joking, and he offered me a job, and at that point, it was like when I came back from Japan, with 5 suitcases, me and my wife, and 3 days at the hotel, like I spent almost 1 year to look for places and to open Godspeed and stuff. So I didn't work for a full year, and just spending my money and supporting me and my wife. So it was time for me to work anyways. Yeah. So
and you worked with Matt Bott at that time, who's with us now.
Oh yeah, Matt. Yeah.
That's an all-star crew, the two of you guys.
Oh man, yeah.
Talking about the beer program, that would be any bar that has a serious beer program having you two in there. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
So as your brewery gets closer to opening in 2017, it seemed like your reputation was growing, even though you weren't brewing at the time. People were talking in the Toronto circles and Ontario that Bim's in Toronto. He's going to be building something because the word was out there that you wanted to open in Toronto. It helped. You got more media when you opened than a lot of breweries do today, and a lot of beer geeks were talking about you. How did you harness that attention? Did it drive you to open quicker? Did it drive you to?
I mean, it stressed me out. Like some did talk too much, before it's time, and it caused me a little bit of trouble actually. I remember one day, this particular guy, like shooting the crap on social media, and then the next day, not even the next day, the same day, I get phone calls from Toronto Star and some of my partners that time they were owning Trou du Diable. They called me and they say, man, there's people calling us to get your phone number because they want to talk to you. It was just like, okay, I haven't signed my lease yet, so I was not even sure that I was going to get 242 Coxwell.
Yeah.
Anyways, it was very annoying to be honest with you. And I didn't understand the whole, it became such a hype, and I don't know, I never understood it, so.
You just scratched an itch that I think I wasn't even going to go there, but now, so Le Trou du Diable, they were investors in the original, and they were purchased by Molson.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean,
Isaac and
Andre, Luc.
Yeah.
So I didn't. I was the day that they announced it. It's funny because I got like 5 phone calls in the morning, and I was doing something. I got my 2 hands in something. I said, "Oh man, what's going on?" It's like, am I in trouble? So it's Luc from Trou du Diable that wanted to announce me that they were selling out before it hits the media. And actually, anyways, so yeah, they were, and then they sold, but they're still my partners, and they're most amazing partners to have, especially now that they have money. They really care about the numbers, but
Isaac, that guy back in the day, party animal, eh?
Yeah, such a warrior.
So what's he doing
guy.
now? He's doing like whiskey or something now?
Yeah, he's doing whiskey, and they're all doing amazing things. And Andre, like he's got a vineyard in Italy.
He was the brewer.
The brewer. And he's releasing an album with his kid.
Oh yeah,
with his son. It's so inspiring. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, those guys. Those were again those Mondial years with those guys in their prime. Were
the golden years.
You opened the doors in July 2017. You had a lot of delays. You picked a building.
Yep.
But it's also in the city of Toronto, so there's always something. Our good friend, Triple M, Mary Margaret McMahon, she was a city councillor at the time. She helped out a lot. You had the mayor show up to your grand opening. The mayor at the time, John Tory, he doesn't just show up to a brewery opening, but what's going on? How did you get all this?
That's so funny because I was, like our first day opening, for me, like it's so me, I was handling all the social media. I was handling everything at the day. Now I have like amazing people, doing this. But, not even 24 hours before we open, it's okay, Godspeed open tomorrow, 11 a.m., 3 beers at the retail. That was July 1st. So Canada Day. Anyway, so it's like it's 10:45. Like there's nobody lined up. I said, this is not happening. It's like I'm so nervous, and suddenly 11, and out of nowhere there's a lineup around the corner. Yeah. I think we sold like 15,000 cans on that. Yeah. 8,000 cans on that day, and 7,000 the next day. It was insane. But anyways, so I'm in the brewery, the cold room, just stacking like the beers and stuff because we're not enough employees. And then my staff says, the mayor is here, wants to see you. Says, yeah, right. Yeah. And says, no, the mayor's really here. So Mary Margaret brought him. Yeah. They had an event somewhere, I think, in the beaches, and but Mary Margaret, wow.
Yeah, I wanted to give her a shout out because I know how instrumental she was as a city councillor, and how much of a backer she was in supporting you, even though it was on the next. It wasn't even in her riding.
Yeah, she was like
ward.
I think it was. Yeah, it was at that.
It was at that time.
Yeah, it was. But it's like the first thing. After visiting about 70 places, in Toronto, I get to that place and I love the physical space and stuff, but it's the first time I walk into that area. And I go back home, and first thing I do, I look, who's the counselor? And I gave her a call. And I hit the secretary and says, Mary Margaret's going on holiday and stuff. She can call you. And by the way, why? And I said, well, I come back from Japan and I want to open a brewery in Toronto, and I want to make sure that she would support me. Mm-hmm. And she called me back like 15 minutes later. And, she lived in Japan. Yeah. So she started, talking to me in Japanese, and she said, whatever I can do, please. So, she was, I owe so much to that lady.
She still comes over the very odd time to my house for a beer on the porch, or brings me strawberries from the market. She is an amazing woman. So walk me through the original concept, the look, the names of the beers, the menu, the design of the space, everything.
Well, like I said, I'm a minimalist and refined simplicity. I want something like, not flashy, but, with a lot of soul. So everything you see at Godspeed, it's all designed by me, and I hired a craft person from Quebec. All the materials.
Architect or
no, not even an artist. That builds like furniture and stuff.
Okay, yeah.
So it's all reclaimed wood, reclaimed metal that has a lot of history from where I come from Quebec. So this is all the front of the house. It's all, there's a nice story to tell. So that was very important for me. And then, coming back from Japan, it's kind of like failing what I really wanted to do, in Japan. I say, well, you know what? I'm just gonna bring it to Toronto.
So the concept that you wanted in Japan didn't work out. You brought it to Toronto.
I brought it to Toronto, but I mean, even better in Toronto than it would have been in Japan, actually. So yeah.
Yeah, I get jealous because our next door neighbor, I was telling you this, my next door neighbor, shout out to Alex. He's there all the time. He's like a fixture at the bar. No, he's not a fixture, but he's there a lot. That the staff they were asking him if he wants to take the Lucre course because that you were offering last week. So you walk into Godspeed, it's all open. You can see the kitchen, you can see the bar, communal seating for the most part. You sit on kegs outside, or has that changed? Or because I like that.
Yeah, it changed. I mean,
I like the pillows on the kegs.
It was not for everybody.
Yeah. Okay. And you have a retail store there. One thing I'll say, going into that, to the space, the kitchen is spotless. Always has been. You should take great pride in that because a lot of kitchens in this province or everywhere, actually, when you sell beer to them, you've probably seen the kitchens at some places and you're, well, why should I eat here? But when you go into Godspeed, it's beautiful. And you have Verst doing the food there.
Yeah. Since last year. Yeah. I mean, COVID, unfortunately, I had all Japanese staff. It was all Japanese food. So I wanted to bring back kind of like the family style food / izakaya, in a brew pub in Toronto. And unfortunately, COVID kind of.
But things are working out with a Verst, though.
Oh yeah, with Verst, it's amazing. Yeah. It's amazing. Yeah, it's good to work with them. It's very exciting. It's totally different concept in the beginning. I started as a Japanese style izakaya brew pub, and now I'm a European beer hall. Yeah,
you got the German food, Czech beers. Yeah,
yeah, but you know what? I think people relate more to Verst than what I try to create with the Japanese, which is, that makes me happy.
Yeah, I don't want to say it like this, but in Toronto, and I'm not saying it wouldn't be family friendly with the original concept, but I know a lot of people that take their kids there just for the fries. It just helps that little bit.
They're so good. And
do you want edamame, or do you want, and I love the edamame, or do you want the fries?
Duck fat fries. Yeah, they're amazing.
Now, I only have a couple more questions on Godspeed because there's still a lot that we need to go through here. But we are humans, and as much as we can say bad reviews or comments about our brands and spaces don't hurt us personally, they do. Like, we can't say that they don't. There is one in particular on a beer form about you specifically, about Godspeed, and the beers that you did for opening. But it was like the weekend, or it was the day after you opened. How did that hit you? Because I know you know which one I'm talking about. And how did you use that to your advantage? Or did you use it to your advantage?
When I opened the door on July 1st, it was like, there was a lot of emotions. I remember my family, everybody's there. They want to, take a picture with me with the first client. And the next thing I did is I just run the brewery, and I kind of cried for like 15 minutes, it was like of joy, exhaustion, everything. And then, it was probably on day 2 or day 3, I think that person was expecting a lot. They were surprised that with the lineup that I started with, they were, I think selfishly wanted something else, and they just trash me. And
you had a Dortmunder, an IPA, and
and a stout.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and it's. I was hurt a lot, but at the same time, I say, hey man, it's like, good luck. I try to accomplish this. It's easy. It's easy to yap there, but what do you do? So I kind of and. It was a good learning experience because from there I kind of built like a
wall,
almost, a wall, I don't want to focus too much on these things. I need to keep my focus and do what I do, so Yeah.
Well, I remember a lot of us came to the defense because you're like,
thank you.
You know what? Just let them get going because
Exactly.
you know, as they say, Rome wasn't built in a day, or Godspeed wasn't built in a day. So fast forward, you open in 2017. You got Japanese influenced brands, food, German style beers. And then you take a trip to the Czech Republic with the consult, and changed your whole brewery, changed your whole thinking on brewing. If I'm putting words into your mouth, what the hell happened?
Well, you know, I was interested in the Czech style beer for a long time, and we were brewing a Bohemian Pils at Dieu Du Ciel, but I never traveled to the Czech Republic, and the first time I did is in actually 2013.
Okay.
And I was living in Japan at that time, and I did the trip to Urkel, to Pilsen. I was in Bamberg because my brew house in Japan was from Bamberg, so I drive to Pilsen, and I do the tour, and then hit the cellars, and try that beer from the barrel.
I have never been there, but all I can picture is the Michael Jackson, the old videos that he used to do. I can't remember what it was called, Discover Beer or something like that. But he took a trip and the cameras followed him into the cellar. So you actually got to see the cellar before they changed it to stainless steel. And
no, I mean, they always
they still have some.
Yeah, they still have some for the tour.
Yeah,
but I mean, this was one of the biggest revelations for me in my career, and I knew that it was kind of kind of fermenting inside of me for a long time, and then it's like I got so emotional about it, and I said, okay, one day I'm gonna do this, and yeah, if you tell me my top 5 beers in the world, like the Pilsner Kel, like the barrel version is one of them. So yeah, and fast forward to 2018, I was invited to the first Czech trade mission, and of course 1 week of visiting breweries, maltsters, hop farms, and probably the most amazing beer trip in my life. And when I came back, so okay, now I'm set. I have my brewery. It's time to do this. It's serious. It's very, very, emotional for me. Yeah. I just went through it.
So who else was on that trip with you? From Ontario?
Matt Tweedy.
Matt Tweedy was on the first one. Yeah.
Michael Hancock.
Yeah, there we go.
Milos.
Yeah, Milos goes on every year, I think, doesn't he? Or he might not go on the trip every year. He just shows up.
Oh yeah, well he asked like last minute. Yeah, I want to go.
So Mike Lackey went on it this year, 2024, and what do you know? We've started doing some like it's an inspiration. Like it inspires you to get cleaner, to get more technical, to get more thoughtful about everything that you put into that mash slaughter ton.
Yeah, I think it's very important. I know the Czech style beer is getting really popular, but I just say to people, just travel there. You need to travel there. They're the Czech are Germans are in some ways, but the Czechs are the old soul of brewing, I think. I mean, probably in the UK to some places, but it's pretty deep and emotional, and you need to be there to understand.
If you ask the Czechs about the Germans, they're going to shit talk them. If you ask the Germans about the Czech beers, they're going to shit talk them too. But you convinced. So you're 2018. You go there, and then you're back here, and you're all gung ho. Somehow you convinced Pilsner Urquell, that little famous brewery over there in Prague, to work with you on being the first brewery outside of them to get their barrels. Yeah,
crazy, isn't it?
It's 100% crazy.
People ask me, how did you make that happen? I said, well, I asked.
Yeah. No, there's more to that, though. You could ask, but there's something about that international reputation that we talked about.
I asked and I persist for about 4 years. Obviously, COVID did not help, but it all started with actually 2018 when we were there. And when doing the tour, there was like the the marketing person there with the brewer, and she was telling me that we want to do we're looking into doing collaborations with the North American craft breweries, And I just raised my hand and say, I'm the one. And she says, why? Well, I say, I've been committed to lagers for a long time. Pilsner Kill is a revelation in my life. You guys are owned by the Japanese, which is Asahi. Yep. They're owned by Asahi. And I say, at that time, I was probably one of the 3 Westerner that opened a brewery in Japan. Mm-hmm. So I say, it just makes sense.
Yeah.
So this, okay, let's talk about it. And then, every time I put put alarm on my calendar to do a follow up every month, and then says, we're not ready. And then I say, how about some barrels? But I was thinking about used barrels, and then let's see. We'll talk to the Coopers and stuff. And one day, out of the blue, 3 years later, it's okay. We're gonna do this, but you need to come and spend at least 3 weeks with us, and we're going to build the barrels together, and we're going to show you from A to Z. Which I said, well, wait a minute. I'll look at my schedule. No. Well, I was, for the first 6 years, I was the only person brewing beer at Godspeed. So I cut production for almost a month. Just went to Pilsen, and, every day kind of working with the Coopers. One of the best thing in my career.
You can honestly say that no one else has that experience other than those who work for Pilsner Urquell.
Yeah, you should have seen when I walked in there, like the Coopers, they all stopped working and they look at me. They knew I was coming, but it was kind of, oh boy, it was a little scary. And then, they end up being like
and then you had your first drink with them and everything was good.
Yeah, they're lovely teddy bears.
So we're almost there to the rapid fire. I have a couple more questions. This has been a fantastic and fascinating chat. Budweiss, Czechvar, however you say it, wherever you're from.
Yeah.
You were the first North American brewer to ever do a collab with them outside of their walls. Is that the case?
I was the first international brewer.
International.
Yeah, and when they did a beer with Thornbridge said they were the first, and Max, my employee, he got offended, and he sent an email to Thornbridge. But we were actually the first one outside of Czech Republic to do a collaboration. And not only that, and I'm proud to say, I'm still the only brewery, and I think not brewing there once but twice to ever brew at Budvar.
You brewed there. They came here, and Adam brewed here.
Yeah, and I went back to brew.
Wow.
So I was the only brewery to be allowed at Budvar.
And that's how that international reputation continues to grow. That
I'll take it.
No one else is doing these type of things and getting this. And so you still have your version at Godspeed.
Yeah, it's called Buch, but everybody say Boo.
Yeah. Well, my next door neighbor, again, shout out to Alex. Every time you release it, we have a bunch on the front porch, so he brings them back for me.
Thank you.
We got to close out on Godspeed, and before so we can get to the rapid fire, because you're a busy man, and we got stuff to do tonight. In an article on you and Godspeed from 2017, you mentioned, and I quote, "A lot of people I know wish they could go back," in reference to other brewers. "They've launched small brew pubs and had to expand or find a second location. This is the size I want to be. I don't want to get bigger." Does that sentiment still ring true for you and Godspeed today?
100%.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You're happy where you are?
I'm happy where I am. When my partners, to be partners, I walk them, they come to see the site. I say, look at those 4 walls very carefully, because that's where it is, that's what it is. And, I planned everything in advance, for the final expansion and the final kind of like volume beer brewed. And I say, I'm sticking to that. Obviously now that I know that the numbers works, it's good enough for me. I don't want to try to rule the world with my beers.
Are you going to go to 473 ml cans at some point, or are you going to stick to the 355s?
We tried one time with,
you did?
Yeah, when we did the Dortmunder, our Otskara Sama, it was our flagship beer at the time. Now it's not anymore.
I love that beer.
We brew it once a year now and see how things change. But we tried to do a batch.
Yeah.
Well, we split the batch in 473 and 355, and the 473 just sat in the cold room. So looks like people think of Godspeed and the 355.
So us at Great Lakes, we're predominantly tall cans. We put some beer in 473 or 355s. When we do move to 473s, they just fly. So I guess it's all depending on the brewery, right?
Exactly.
You mentioned earlier that you chose Toronto as it was underdeveloped back in 2014, 2015. Would you say the same today? And are you happy with the decision to come to Toronto?
I'm still happy. I think there are some breweries, but even on the east side, but I think we're not kind of like overlapping each other, even if, left field is not far and, like Rorschach and all that stuff. And we all do our thing, right? But I would say Toronto is great. And the only thing I wish is like it didn't get that expensive.
Yeah.
It's really expensive, even on the East End. It's like, God, property taxes and this and that. It's just like
water's gone up like what 90% over the last 5 years, and
everything. So, but apart from that, I'm pretty happy about how it's going.
Good. Well, we're happy to have you in Toronto.
Thank you.
I want to close out this part of the chat with reading you yet another quote of yours from that same article in 2017. It was shortly after you opened Godspeed. I love this quote. This is it. I want to be a neighborhood brewpub with an international reputation. Bim, there is no doubt amongst your peers that you've succeeded with this goal. How do you view that?
God.
Pilsner Quell, Budweiser Budweiss.
Yeah,
Japanese like
very unpretentiously. I have a hard time saying that word, but I wanted to put the East End of Toronto on the map basically, and but keeping small. I got the inspiration from Dieu Du Ciel, right? I mean, when before the production brewery opened in Saint-Jérôme, I mean, that little brew pub on the corner of Clark and Laurier, had attention from, people all around the world. And
if you're traveling to Montreal, from a beer perspective, you were going to Dieu Du Ciel.
Yeah. So, obviously I want to continue that and paying respect to my, where it all came from for me. And, somehow, it's just happening. It's in my heart, and I always want to challenge myself and keep myself excited, and my staff also. So I never try to push it. Like things happen kind of like organically, and sometimes I have to pinch myself. I don't even like wow, this is happening to me. It's crazy.
Things are working out, and that's the best main part here for what you've gone through with the Japan stuff. And you're here, you're succeeding, you're happy, everything's good, and that's what we want to hear. So we're going to do a quick break. We're going to hear an ad from our friends at Hop Apparel, and we're going to come back with some rapid fire questions. Grab a sip of that Dusseldorf, and we'll be right back.
Hey craft beer lovers, ready to show off your passion? Let me introduce you to Hop Bomb Apparel Company. This isn't just another t-shirt brand. Hop Bomb puts the same care and detail as a master brewer into every design, crafting each tee with original beer-inspired graphics, using premium fabrics and small batch screen printing methods. So whether you're visiting your local brewery, hitting up a beer festival, or just hanging out with friends, show off your love for craft beer and style with Hop Bomb Apparel. And right now, you can get 10% off your order with the code FERMENT10 at checkout. So check out hopbombapparel.ca and find your next favorite beer drinking tea.
That was another amazing sip. Did you like that beer?
It's amazing beer.
Yeah. Seriously. And that was a great chat. Honest to God, that was that time went by so fast. But we're to the point now, Bim, where we're going to do rapid fire questions. Name a beer that you've been enjoying recently that's not Godspeed or that beer Great Lakes in front of you.
Okay. Edel Pils from Sapporo in Japan. It's amazing. Beer, mind-blowing. And in Canada, Grace and Gratitude from Tooth and Nail last night, and not only one.
Tooth and Nail, this rapid fire, I fuck it up every time, but Tooth and Nail, they just did the whole cone Saws lager. Did you have that when you were?
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
And that's the one, right?
Oh, that's the name of it? Oh, I didn't.
Grace and Gratitude.
Okay.
I think so. I mean, it's
such an amazing beer, eh?
Yeah.
I took some people from, we were in Ottawa recently, the Coalition of Canadian Independent Craft Brewers took some people over to Tooth and Nail who'd never been there. They had the vim and vigor, and they were just like, oh my God, like this beer is spectacular.
You know, I love Vim, but I told Matt all the time, like Grace and Gratitude for me is just like, yeah, it's great.
Name your celebrity doppelganger.
Oh boy. Yeah, that's interesting question. I mean, for appearance, I mean, Liam Neeson. A few years younger, minus the bank account, and supposedly he's a gentleman, which I'm trying to be. And do you know he used to be a forklift operator at Guinness?
Oh yeah,
yep.
Yeah. There you go. Okay, Liam Neeson, I will find you. Name a person or brewery in the industry that has or continues to inspire you.
Oof. I mean, anyone who's really being himself and willing to take risk and not being afraid of not playing the game.
Very political. You can't name one, eh?
No.
Okay, that's a good answer. Best time and place for a beer?
Anytime, any place. The one, the one you forget about in great company.
Oh, there you go. That's a new answer. I haven't heard that one before.
But I can also say, after a long walk in Prague, sitting down at the Tigra, the Golden Tiger, sipping pints after pints of Pilsner Urquell, again, in great company.
So the Golden Tiger is I've heard this.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah.
You need to go.
I know. Peter Bullitt, I need to go. Favorite brewery. So this is an interesting one because you've toured a lot, but you've brewed in a lot. Favorite brewery you've ever toured?
Ooh. I would say Calagione, probably.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's amazing. But also, Pilsner Urquell, of course, which changed me as a brewer. So
Calagione, you've done the whole thing.
I brewed there too.
Oh,
I mean,
okay. Well, he's got a one up. Yeah.
I mean, not a collaboration, but I helped brew, and I even emptied the mash tun, by hand.
So I was there in 2011 or something like that with Jean Vanois. He must have spent 5 hours with us, my wife and I, and we went to every single corner of that brewery, had every beer he's ever done, all the vintages. So that's my big thing that I'll always remember. This guy, I was nobody. I was just a guy writing about beer, and he spent 5 hours, toured us everywhere. And I'm not that big fan of sour beers and lambics and stuff, but the experience alone, just to learn everything about that place, was just amazing. And it goes to show how much an owner, brewer, whatever, that they spend some time with, like just how much that means to someone, and the legacy for that brewery lives on. How many breweries have you ever visited, or have you visited in your life?
Oh, wow, God. Something I never noted, but I don't know. Yeah, it's like the beers that I drank, right? But I wouldn't be surprised that it was probably more than 200.
Yeah,
for sure. I guess so. I don't. Yeah, I'm not sure.
If you could only drink one beer for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Again, Pilsner Urquell in the cellar, and hope it doesn't sound pretentious, but our own interpretation of it.
No, I don't think that's
Sklepnik. It's our interpretation of it, and it's
I have some in my fridge right now, so you can say.
Yeah, it's a very emotional beer for me. Yeah.
So would you say you're more connected with the Pilsner Urquell or the Budweiser? Because that's going to be a struggle, right? You have relationships with both.
You know what? I would say Pilsner Urquell, but what I'm trying to do, the next step is to bring everybody together.
Oh, amazing!
That would be mind blown to do like the triangle collaboration, but I don't think it's going to happen.
I like square more. I mean, Great Lakes can be one of those squares. Okay. Favorite place to grab a beer in Toronto?
Anywhere I'm invited to drink from the tank itself. But that's the best place to
we
drink.
didn't have one from the tank today at Great Lakes, but you had the Lipa. the Lipa, the linden blossom.
Yeah, but you know what? I could say a physical place, the bar and stuff. I think I could say what?
Yeah.
Like especially in the winter, beside that fire pit.
You get lost in there, don't you?
Oh, it's amazing. And playing pool and having great beers.
We just went there. The team, Great Lakes, just went there, and we were downstairs. We were having drinks, and I was telling the team, say what's kind of where I cut my teeth in Toronto for, like, I would go there just to try all the different beers. And you'd go in at 2:00 on a, December afternoon. It's sunny and bright out. And then you walk out and it's like 8:00 and you're like, shit, where'd the day go? But you're having so much fun and such a great time. And Joan, who used to work there, did you ever get served by Joan? Legendary.
Of course.
She's just successfully battled cancer. So she's probably not listening. She's probably doing something better with her time. But Joan, if you do happen to tune into this, we love you. 2 more. Proudest moment of your career.
Ooh. Wow. Yeah, probably, when the 2 barrels made from Pilsner Kill hit the brewery and I filled them, and when we released that batch, it's that was pretty crazy. Yeah.
And the most important one, best hangover cure.
Oh man. I'm sure some people will laugh hearing this. People that know me, definitely a few Bloody Caesars.
Okay.
The spicy, of course.
Okay. All right, Bim. Man, that was a great episode. The time flew by. I, honest to God, could really just sit here all day, drinking beers, talking shop. I learned a lot of new things about you, and it was an extreme pleasure to have you on here today to share your story. You got to come back. To chat more about your beers in the future, about what's next for Godspeed, because you never just sit on your ass and say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. You're always doing something. Like, I know you got Peche Day coming up. You have you just had the Czech consulate at the brewery for like 3 days and doing collabs with Pilsner Aquel. You got so much going on, but I'd love to have you come back again to tell us more about what's going on when you're here again. And
it would be an honor. Thank you.
Well, cheers for coming by. And again, thanks so much. Cheers.
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 At Bossa Nova, we have more than 400 products you won't find at the LCBO. Our craft beer comes from local faves and legendary producers like Driefonteinen, Bruton, and Hitachino. Our wines are the ones sommeliers bring into better restaurants, rarely available to take home. We have Basque cider, Normandy cider, Italian, Californian, as well as the finest from Ontario. Next door, relax and enjoy our outstanding selection in the newly opened Bar Bossa Nova. Bossa Nova, in Roncesvalles Village. We've got a lot of stuff you're gonna love.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, awesome humans the world over, it's time for another edition of Cole's Notes with Cole Raiscombs, GLB's Quality Assurance Lab Supervisor. He'll be talking about what's really growing in our beer. Take it away, Cole.
Hey everyone, what's going on? Welcome to another Cole's Notes segment. This week, we're going to dive into how we find out what is really growing in our beer. On previous episodes, I've spoken about the many antimicrobial properties of beer and that we're constantly monitoring them for infection. But how do we know when a beer is infected? The contaminating organisms involved are generally too small for us to see with the naked eye, and we can't ask them what they are, so how do we identify them? Today, I'm going to give you a peek behind the curtain into how we are monitoring our fermentations for microscopic beasties. In our beer making process, we have multiple points that are considered to have the highest risk for potential contamination, which we call critical control points. These critical control points generally revolve around us moving beer from one vessel to another, or adding ingredients such as fruit or other adjuncts to our beer. We take a small sample of beer at each of these critical control points and bring it back to the lab for testing. In the lab, we start by putting a very small volume of the beer sample on a petri dish filled with a gelatinous substance called agar, or as I like to call it, the forbidden jello. Each of these forbidden jello plates has a variety of antibiotics which selectively kill certain microorganisms, as well as other indicators which can help us narrow down what's likely growing in our samples. We take this array of plates and grow them in an incubator for 48 to 72 hours, and then we look at what is grown. Remember earlier when I said that microorganisms were too small for us to see with our naked eye? Well, when they grow on our agar plates, they form these visible clusters of cells called colonies. Based on the size, shape, color, number, and what it did and didn't grow on, we can narrow down what sort of microbial colony we're looking at. However, this process isn't perfect, as there's sometimes overlap in the markers for what could or couldn't be growing. Luckily, we have a few other methods to gain more information, such as gram staining, where we take a variety of dyes to stain the cells based on their membrane, and PCR, where we take the DNA of our microbe and copy it a bunch of times until we can measure certain genetic markers. These are just a few ways that we can use the ingenuity of science to see the invisible world. Who knew that science could taste so good?
As always, I didn't, but now I do. Thank you so much, Cole.
Take care, Troy.
Around the industry.
As I mentioned at the top of the show, there was a lot that happened in the last couple weeks since we had Michael Hancock on. Sleeping Giant Brewing Company takes over Newark Brewery out of Beamsville. So Thunder Bay purchases a brewery in Beamsville, Ontario. In an interview with tbaywatch.com, CEO Dre Mulligan said it will lead to opportunities to create effective synergy. I love synergies in a press release. To create effective synergies to scale and grow to increase market share. Not really sure what the next steps are with that. Newark is a very small brewery, and Sleeping Giant is a big regional brewery that sells beer out of Thunder Bay, Kenora, in southern Ontario, but in Manitoba as well. So we'll see what happens there. Over at the Toronto Star, our good friend Josh Rubin wrote a piece on the success of alcohol sales at the convenience store level. The article, alcohol sales have been a big boost. Everything across the board is selling really well, says Kenny Shem, the president of the Ontario Convenience Stores Association. A lot of store owners are running out of stuff because the LCBO can't handle all the orders that have been placed. Over 4,700 stores across Ontario are now licensed. We have, fortunately, Grey Lakes is fortunately in a lot of those stores right now. Speaking of convenience and or new retail channels, Costco has now entered the beer game with cases going live back on October 31st. Grey Lakes is not there yet, but some other craft breweries are. Keep an eye out for that. You'll see them, the big block piles and lots of pallets of craft beer. I'm obligated to say that Costco is now selling beer because we want to get into Costco, and it's our podcast, so we can say that. Successful OCB conference just happened. Bim, when are you going to join the OCB?
Oh God!
On the spot. We got Tweety to join.
So that was the curveball.
And we got Matron to join recently, and we got Bellwoods, and
all right,
that's a shaking of the head. All right,
okay.
We're gonna talk.
I've been thinking about it for a long time.
Yeah, it's the tax. We need the tax changed,
yeah,
and
for sure.
The Save Local Craft Beer campaign that's happening right now. It affects everyone, and we're doing the work. It'd be great to have you there, and it'd be great to get you back to the conference. I know you spoke. Was it last year or the year before? But the conference this year, we had over 120 vendors. We had guest speakers from breweries across the province joined panels. We had Peter Bullitt sat in on a presentation talking about the good times and the bad times, and he told a lot of stories. So you missed that if you didn't get there this year. It was quite a show. But again, thank you to all the organizers. It was great. And that's it. That's all, folks. Episode 23 with Luc Bim Lafontaine, made with struggle and love, has moved from the mash tun to the fermenters. Today's episode was fueled by cans of Old Dusseldorf Alt Beer, which was freshly canned just for this episode and for my fridge. You can find this beautiful beer online at greatlakesbeershop.ca or at both GLB retail store locations. Also, keep an eye out for it on tap at terrific beer bars across Ontario. And maybe we'll get it at Godspeed one day. You can visit the brewery at 30 Queen Elizabeth Boulevard in Etobicoke or grab some delicious eats and fresh pours at our brewpub at 11 Lower Jarvis Street in Toronto. If you have any content you'd love to hear us discuss on the show, guest ideas, or just want to tell us what you're drinking, drop us a line at podcast@greatlakesbeer.com. And Bim, where can you find Godspeed?
I mean, what, beers?
No, 242.
Coxwell Avenue.
there
Yeah,
we go.
242 Coxwell Avenue. GodspeedBrewery.com. Godspeed Beer on Instagram.
Go visit that. Go visit Godspeed today. You will be impressed. Until next time, please remember to keep tipping your glass of fresh GLB in the right direction. Supporting local never tasted so good.
To learn more about what's happening at Great Lakes Brewery, visit greatlakesbeer.com and subscribe to our weekly newsletter or follow Great Lakes Beer on your favorite social media platforms.